Welcome to August the 20th. I'll start from 2017, work back to 2014, take it from there. Some things should not happen, but they do. The case is before court, so a lot of information is not available. A mentally ill man tried to blow up the Australian Christian lobby in Canberra. He was injured in the explosion, but capable of giving his reason. However, the reason he has given is at odds with assurances police made the public. ACT Chief Police Commander Mark Walters said, "As a result of our conversations with this man, we've been able to establish that his actions were not politically, religiously, or ideologically motivated. Yet the accused said he chose the grounds because I dislike the Australian Christian lobby over its position on sexuality and because religions are failed." To be fair, the accused is a gay activist, and the police response was probably to assure people that the attack was not Presbyterian terrorist related. But police should not use code to address issues. It betrays the community trust that police need to function effectively. Yesterday's column was challenged by a reader who believed I overstated the goodwill between Trump and Bannon. I could be wrong, but I believe that politically motivated press have misreported the issue as fake news. I understand that the administration is keen to take a new direction, but not to discredit the work of campaigner Bannon. The White House is no longer campaigning for power, but exercising it, which is a different skill set. Time will tell. Agrippa Posthumus was a grandchild of Octavian. Octavian was said to have doted on his family, but he made some strong decisions. Agrippa's father died before he was born. Octavian adopted his two brothers and made Agrippa heir. He had not adopted him as he wanted the family name of Agrippa to continue, but when both brothers died, Octavian adopted him anyway. At the same time, Octavian adopted his stepson, Tiberius, and made Agrippa the first in line. Agrippa was described as having no good qualities. Tacitus described him as devoid of every good quality. He had been involved in no scandal. He was exiled shortly before Octavian died. Around the time Octavian died, on this day in 14, Agrippa was executed. Tiberius, as Caesar, was terrible for Rome. With the Crusades winding down by the 14th century, the Knights Templar was threatened with kings that wanted to dissolve them and collect their wealth. Jacques de Molay was head of the Knights, and the French king Philip IV had him tortured until he confessed in 1307. He later retracted his confession, so in 1314, Philip had him burned on a scaffold on an island in the river Seine. On this day, in 1308, Pope Clement V pardoned Molay, absolving him of charges of heresy. In 1519, philosopher and general Wang Yang-min defeated Zhu Zhenchao, Prince of Ning, who had tried to seize the emperor's seat. The penalty for losing was to be slow slicing, a form of torture where small bits of flesh are cut off from the victim until they die. He committed suicide first. Johann de Witt was a senior public servant and mathematician in Holland. On this day in 1672, his devotion was not well rewarded when he went to visit his brother and was lynched by political opponents. In 1858, Charles Darwin published his theory of evolution through natural selection. Many people feel it disproves Islam. In 1866, President Andrew Johnson formally declared the Civil War was over. In 1882, Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture debuted in Moscow. In 1920, the world's first commercial radio station began in Detroit. In 1938, Lou Gehrig hit his 23rd Grand Slam, which was to remain a record for 75 years until Alex Rodriguez. The craze of ice bathing is to address ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. The admission that Asada investigation into drugs and sport was a political witch hunt echoes A-Rod's story. He has been banned from Major League Baseball for no evident reason. In 1940, Leon Trotsky was killed by a Soviet agent who was a Spanish communist. Trotsky was a communist who opposed Stalinist bureaucracy. The ice pick which claimed his life came from an ally and friend he would have given anything to protect. He gave his life, and his family lost theirs for his belief too. In 1940, Churchill gave his famous speech, including the line, "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." A great and humble man was sent by Nazis to Buchenwald on this day in 1944. A New Zealander, Phil Lamison, was one of 168 captured airmen. Gestapo labeled them terror flyers, not armed combatants, and sent them to a concentration camp, not a POW camp. Phil was senior officer and gave his men military bearing and discipline. He managed to get word to the Luftwaffe of the plight of his men, and they were transferred to a POW camp the day they had been scheduled for execution. He retired to a farm in New Zealand after the war. In 1968, the Soviet Union crushed the Czech Spring. In 1988, the Iran-Iraq War had a ceasefire after 8 years. In 1991, 100,000 people rallied outside the Kremlin following the coup ejecting Gorbachev from power. In 1998, Clinton sent cruise missiles against camps in Afghanistan and a chemical plant in Sudan in retaliation for the bombing of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania.